right,
so
guys.
what are we doing today, Tim?
This plastic tank's got to go. So as of right now, our heat exchanger, our intercooler, and our engine coolant all run through this one tank. But there's two lines on the bottom, and you got this line, which is your engine coolant side, and this is your intercooler side. So we got a split tank.
Should I kill that fan?
And you'll understand as soon as you see it. It's a little muggy.
Yeah, it's a little hot out here, but
we got fans rolling.
Yep.
But basically, if you were to separate your engine coolant and your intercooler coolant, if your intercooler goes bad, technically your machine wouldn't overheat and potentially cause more problems. And intake air temperatures are way cooler because you don't have the engine coolant soaking the heat exchanger side.
Correct. Yep.
And there's a lot of things they don't know, I guess, right now.
Yeah. So we've already put one of these on Tim's machine. You guys might have seen that on some of our social media stuff. We were saving this one to do an actual install video. So this one's obviously going on a 2-seater. We've already done the 4-seater, and we've seen probably I would say at least a 25-degree drop in temperature. Yeah.
So we have...
It's substantial.
So we have the same intercooler, and I have a split tank on him. And I want to say his is at 155 and mine's at 120.
Yeah, 120, 125,
yeah,
I think is the highest we've seen it, yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
Now, if you can imagine what stock would be, I don't really know because we didn't really pay attention to it, or if we did, we don't remember it.
Stock was pretty substantial. I think it was
200.
Like no, it was like in the 170s, 180s, something like that.
Really?
But that was on E85 as well, you know, so that would keep things down a little bit. So
yeah, so I can go out and make 2 hits and my temperature be 120, 124. He goes out and makes 2 hits and it's 150 to 160, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so these things make a huge difference.
Yeah, big difference. So this is the D&M Racing. These guys got a lot of nice products over there. Doug is super helpful and will go out of his way to answer any questions you might have. And I didn't think that this would really benefit a whole lot, but I'm going to tell you right now, in the 2 weeks that I've had mine,
it's made a huge difference.
Big difference. Yep. And you see, if you watch your log, you see the air temperatures different. The intake air temperature is way lower.
Yeah. You can just see how nice this piece is too.
All TIG welded tanks. So, and you can't mess it up. It's just self-explanatory. You got a big hose and a small hose on the bottom. And so basically this is just going to sit down in here. And there's a line on each side. And then you got these two. And basically this is this side of this tank is your engine coolant, and this other side, the right side, is then your intercooler and heat exchanger. So this will be your intercooler and this will be your engine coolant, and it just, take this completely out, and then this sets in there. It's got little spacers and some little self tappers that just go right into the frame here, and it holds it right in its spot. What I found on mine to be the easiest, instead of trying to get down underneath the tank to disconnect the 2 lines and then reconnect them right there, what I do is there's a T right here in the passenger wheel well, which I'll show you guys in a minute. I disconnect it there, and then I come over here to the bottom of the heat exchanger and I disconnect that line, and then pull these 2 lines and the 3 screws, and this whole thing just comes right out. And there's lines on the heater hoses to where basically you just put it back on there straight like this. As long as that white line on the hose is lined up, you know that the hose is positioned to go back where it was supposed to go.
Okay.
Like it originally was. It was actually pretty easy and pretty straightforward. I was wondering if once I got it in there, if I was going to have to turn it, but once I got it out of there and I seen what was going on, it's pretty straightforward. So it's super easy install. I would say it's really fairly quick. Trying to record the process makes it take a little bit longer, but other than that, so intercooler side, you'll just add coolant into it and turn your key, keep cycling your key a whole bunch. And it's got a 12-volt pump on the passenger side underneath the sway bar. It's a little round pump your heater hoses go to. That circulates the intercooler coolant. And so this will basically self-bleed itself within 3 or 4 minutes of cycling the key, and that's done. And then the engine side, underneath a heat shield, you have an 8mm bleeder screw, and basically you just fill it up and crack that sucker loose and just
so it starts coming out of there,
and let it flow. And I mean, just let it flow, just let it pour out of there, because you want to make sure that you get any air pockets out of the cylinder, out of the head, and other than that, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, so we talked about doing that before because I did the intercooler on my machine, and we actually ended up not needing it for the intercooler. We pinched the lines well enough but I never got an air bubble in the system, but with doing this, it sounds like we're going to have to do it. So, well,
no matter what, we're going to lose quite a bit of coolant, and after all the problems I've had with my machine, I'm not taking a chance of ever having a coolant problem. So we're going to go ahead and bleed it, get it bled out right, and
yeah.
Alright guys, so if you see here, this is the line that goes up to the plastic tank on the intercooler side. So you want to pull this clamp, slide it back, and I made sure this was broke free from the aluminum. But basically there's no way to plug all this coolant off, so it's going to go ahead and just pour out into this pan. I got a pan sitting here, and it might be a little bit messy. But once you pull this side, basically the tank's going to drain, and you ain't really going to have much more of a mess after that. And this is like a 2x3 catch pan, so we should be pretty good. But I'm going to go ahead and pull this and see if we can make a mess.
Well, you weren't lying about the mess.
It's just a quick little mess. Well, you just got to do it in Crocs.
Okay.
Once you do it in Crocs, you're good.
Okay. I guess I got them in flip-flops, but my flip-flops would probably be sliding around if that was the case.
You're fine.
I don't have the option to lock it in four-wheel drive.
I'm just in two-wheel drive with socks. It's the best way to go. I'm going to find a rag and clean up a little bit. Alright, so right here is the big line that goes up to the tank for the engine coolant side. So see this clamp here? It's just like these. It was down here. Slide it up. I take this little pick right here and I get up in the line and just break it free from the plastic so that it, you know, comes off freely or whatever. So go ahead and now you're pulling that line off. You're going to leak a little bit more coolant, and then the 3 bolts on the tank comes right out. Alright, so we're up here up top now. So go ahead and pull this little overflow line. They give you new line, but this one's like pre-bent, so I reused it on mine. And then I just made another overflow hose for the other side, which I'll show you. But pull this clamp, slide it out of your way. This clamp, slide it out of your way.
I was gonna say, I would assume that when this is all said and done, you're gonna have a little extra anyways.
What?
A little extra line.
No, these, technically, I think I reused this side, but that side completely has to get disconnected from the intercooler, and there's a new one.
Okay.
It has new line for both sides, but I don't really see the purpose for this side. So I just trimmed this one back to where it just flowed nicely into the tank.
Nice.
Which I'll show you. And then I'm gonna get up in here. So if you take and just lightly, it's hard to get in here right now, but if you just turn the rubber hose, it kind of breaks it free from the plastic tank or metal lines or whatever you're dealing with. There we go, it comes right off. So now, those other 2 lines that we just disconnected down low are still hooked to the tank. We pull 3 screws, which is a Torx. Let's see what it is. So I just got this little electric ratchet, so it is a T27. And so basically just pull those 3. You got this one. You can just keep the camera rolling for this.
Maybe one on the bottom and one on the right.
Got one on the bottom and then one on the right. There's 3 total.
Okay.
I think it sets into the plastic firewall, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Got one more up here. Okay, so there's all 3 fasteners right there. And then if I remember correctly, yeah,
there you
so
go.
it doesn't hook into the firewall. So there's a little clip right here. I thought that helped hold the tank, but it doesn't have nowhere to hook. So right now I'll show you. You see the white line? Mm-hmm. And if you look real close right there, there's a line on that plastic tank just straight up and down.
Okay.
Just back those clips off, and when you go to line up the new tank is going to sit like this at you. And obviously this hose is bigger, so it would go on here, and this hose is smaller, so it would go on here. And just line that straight line right up straight on there and straight on there. Okay. And these lines are repositioned right back in, ready to go. And then you just, as you're setting this down in there, you just feed these lines through the other lines where they go to put them back in position. So it's pretty straightforward, like I said. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these lines off, and I'll show you them on, and we'll show you start going back together.
You guys can see right there, you left everything else connected. You're just disconnecting the top.
Yeah, you can see the T down there now.
Yep.
And other than that, I mean, it's straightforward. This and that plastic tank, you can just save all that. It's not needed. And the new thing is, here, I'll show you right now. It's sitting in here. It's super clean. So basically, this just comes in here. It's got a certain spot. There we go. So it fits in there nice and tight. And basically this would crush if you didn't have, if you just put something down into the frame right there. So basically they give you these spacers, this little bag, and there's some aluminum spacers and some self-tappers. You just slide the spacer underneath there, put your box right where it goes, straight up and down.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Call it a day. All right, so like I said, when you pull the clamps off, there was lines, you just lined them back up straight. So for some reason, this line was on the side. Maybe they lined it up directly down the side. But what I did is when I pulled this clamp back, I just took a pencil and drew a straight line on the other tank to line up with it, to where when you come to put it on here, you knew that it lined right back up. So both of them are on, ready to go, and we're just gonna slip it down through there and fish these lines back where they go. Oh wait, what is this?
That doesn't exist. Tim doesn't drink pop. Just ask Tim, he'll tell you.
Yeah, I don't drink pop, guys. Only tea and
pop.
Water. And pop. Alright, so we gotta start looking for them. Okay, so I got one. Now we gotta make sure the other one is in the right route. Okay, so I just held this where I wanted it, and I went ahead and ran this self-tapper and made the hole. And then I pulled the bolt back out and I slid the spacer under. Now I'm gonna slightly tighten this one down to hold the tank in place where we want it. Okay, and then I'll run the other self-tapper in, make the hole, I'll pull it back out, and I'll put the spacer under it. All right, guys, so we got the tanks in, the overflow line's on. This is a new line, so this line gets disconnected right in this corner of your heat exchanger, which is this front one. You disconnect that. There's two little hose clamps like this, one here and one there. Pull that off, put your new line, your new clamp, or your clamp that you originally had, and route your line up here, and then cut it off. And then, like I said, I used this one over here. I think
cut a couple inches off.
I think they sent you enough to run this line, so you don't have to cut your original lines. But what's the difference if you
it's already ran? Yeah.
If you went back, you could just use the new hose or whatever. It ain't the end of the
So on this one too, it was kind of tight. So what we did is I had Tim open up this clamp, and then we just pushed the hose on there. So otherwise, it's hard to get that clamp over that neck right there. So
needless to say, they are in completely. We just got to put coolant in them and bleed the system. So other than that, pretty legit setup. And I'm speaking from experience. I already have it on my machine, like we said.
No, it looks
and
good.
I really like it. And
they're smaller in person than I thought they were going to be. You know, judging from the photos and stuff like that. They look really nice.
But you gotta think about, look at this tank.
Yeah, it's a pretty small tank.
Yeah, so this tank necks down. You know, it's kind of fat here, kind of fat here, but it's got little divots and stuff, and then it's real thin here. So who's to say? I mean, you split that and that.
Yeah. So it's probably about the same amount of coolant.
I would say. So yeah, if you guys looking to get a split tank, hit up D&M. Sure, they got plenty of them. All right, so we have got coolant in both sides of the tanks, and we're getting ready to fire this thing up, get it up to temperature, and then open the bleeder. But to do so, this heat shield right here is in your way. You got a 10 millimeter here, 10 millimeter here. You got to sneak your hand in the backside with a wrench to get the nut off the backside. Don't drop it; it's a pain.
And also, don't let it get warm before.
Don't let it get warm. So then, over here, it's kind of a pain to see, but there is behind this flap. You pull that down, and there's two plastic push pins, one on each side. And basically, you just take your pin puller, and there's one. And where's the other? All the way over there behind the turbo.
Yeah, so you pull this heat shield out, that way we can get to the bleeder screw. Make sure this thing's
8 millimeter screw, bleeder screw there, so you got two push pins. Once you get those, hold on, pipe is hot. All right, so this 10 has got to go. Once that 10 goes, this whole heat shield's out of your way.
Yep.
So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll show you bleeding it. All right, so take a funnel, and first, before you start it, you can go ahead and put the funnel in this side. This is your heater, intercooler, and your heat exchanger. So by cycling the key, it's gonna take as much fluid as it wants, and then it's gonna stop. Then you can turn the key on for 10 seconds,
and it pumps it through.
And the pump will turn on for 10 seconds, and then you'll add some. You want to keep this full for just like right now, it's up here on the engine side, and that's in case it burps, it doesn't go dry. Shut the key off and on, and then once you get it to where it has no more movement in the funnel, you go ahead and call that one good. Just keep an eye on it while it's running, because now the pump is continuously running. Now the engine side, do the same thing. You're going to have to twist this hose or pinch it, because your funnel will leak there. And needless to say, this side, doing the same thing. It just kept bubbling before I started it. Once it stopped bubbling and it really stopped taking fluid, then we started it. Now we're trying to get it up to temperature and keep an eye on this and keeping this full. Now, once we get 150 degrees or better in there, maybe 170, somewhere around there, we'll go back here, we'll crack this bleeder, and you just want to let it flow until you see continuous fluid.
Yeah,
you don't want bubble. You'll hear hissing and stuff like that. That's it pushing all the air out until it gets to that point. That's the highest point. So basically, I always I'll put a pan underneath there, and I'll have somebody up here making sure this stays full, and I'll just crack that loose and just let it flow to where you're guaranteed there's no air in there, because an air pocket could be bad.
Yeah, that's what causes overheating issues on a lot of these machines.
They do. So I don't be scared to do it too much. You can't hurt it, and all you're doing is losing the coolant that you're putting in there, but you want to make sure you push all the air out, because the cylinder fills with coolant on the outside of the cylinders, and then the head fills with coolant, and then obviously now it's going to be a lot easier to bleed because the intercooler's on its own side. So just from my experience, that's what I do. Other people might do it a different way. But we're going to go ahead and let this get some temperature in it, and we'll show you what we did here in a minute. All right, guys, so everything's bled, fan circulated multiple times. We
got it up to temp, everything's good.
Bleeder screw out, I don't know, 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes or something. Just make sure it's just coming out straight fluid. Now, obviously, from pulling the lines, we spilt on the A-arms and on the, all over everything. We're going to take it out here, and we're just going to spray it off with the garden hose and make sure all the coolant's off, because if not, you'll be smelling coolant for a couple days. And I hate the smell of coolant. So that's where we're at. If you guys are interested in D&M split tank, hit them up.
We'll have a link at the bottom of this
They have
video.
a lot of nice products, by the way. As you guys know, I have the D&M Stage 3 racing engine, so
yeah, it's been holding up great.
Been good. So, like, share, subscribe. We really appreciate you guys watching and commenting.
Yep.
Check us out on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and obviously you're watching us on YouTube. So We really appreciate it. Thank you. We have a lot of big things coming. We're actually getting ready to load up tomorrow night to go to a race.
Yeah, the next month and a half are booked.
Yeah, so we got a lot going on, and our Silver Lake content's kind of been cut a little bit low this year.
Yeah, they've been holding off on a lot of the drag racing stuff, but we got a big event coming up here shortly, and I think we're just going to go ahead and send it anyways, so we'll see what happens.
Is what it is, but we're going to try to make content other ways.
Yeah.
So, have a good day. Thank you for watching. Got some Rhino 2.0 axle rebuild kits. Basically, it's inner and outer yoke, and we're gonna go ahead and replace them on my machine. We're gonna go ahead and time lapse taking them out, and then we'll go ahead and unbox this.